Well, hello and welcome to today's edition of Political Voice. It is a Friday and it's the last edition for the week, the beginning of a beautiful weekend. And we're excited to come straight up to you and, of course, to give you the best when it comes to amazing stories happening in the political landscape of Nigeria. My name is David Edwin, and there's a lot happening in the political space in Nigeria, but we would be looking at two major stories today. Now, the first one is armed security personnel taking over Kano's Emirate Palace. It's been making the round all through the day, and yes, we'll be looking at that. And of course, our second story is Pandef, Ipob clash over Niger Delta's inclusion in Biafra's agitation. Well, that, I tell you, is another major topic we'll be looking at today. But I'm delighted to be joined today by this esteemed gentleman. First is right here in the studio. With us is Barrister Darlington Agumo, a social and, of course, a political critic. But most importantly, I like to say he's a barrister by law. And yes, he is Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst. And also, we are being joined today virtually is Mr. Isiaka Gbadamosi, who is also a public affairs analyst and, of course, SDG advocate. And joining us, of course, from our Orca studio is Ndubisi Gabriel Okpaleze. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. It's an amazing time to have you all this evening. I don't know if you can hear me, Mr. Isiaka Gbadamosi. A very good evening to you. Okay, our producers are working to get to making sure that our audio is very clear, and we definitely would be having this gentleman join us as we move on. But before we get right into these stories, let's take a global overview of happenings around the world. And well, we'll start off with the White House that has developed a strategy to strengthen Ukraine's military position, including providing an avalanche of military assistance for Kiev and the introduction of new large-scale sanctions against Russia. U.S. President Joe Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan promised during a meeting with the head of Ukrainian President's office, Andriy Yermak, on Thursday to provide the country with hundreds of thousands of additional artillery shells, thousands of missiles, and hundreds of armored vehicles by mid-January. The U.S. also committed to assisting Ukraine with its manpower challenge by arranging the training of new troops to facilitate outside Ukrainian territories. In addition, the U.S. will introduce a series of new sanctions against Russia in the coming weeks. According to the report, all these efforts aim to hinder Russia's ability to sustain military operations and strengthen Ukraine's position at the negotiation table, which could lay the groundwork for a future settlement. Moving on, a Ghanaian living in the United States, Kosi Apla, wished to come vote in the December general elections, but could not. In order to still make his impact felt, the young man has offered to pay transportation fare for people who must travel to vote. When he made this known on social media, several netizens thronged to the comment section to commend him for his kindness. Apla explained that he had been saving up to come to Ghana and make his mark. However, he will be unable to do so. Well, therefore, he would give the money to those who need to travel to exercise their franchise because he cannot make it to Ghana. Interesting times. Well, moving on, President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria has directed the release of funds for the payment of pension arrears, salary increases, and other entitlements owed to retired military personnel. The decision follows 2 days of peaceful protests by military retirees at the Federal Ministry of Finance. Minister of State for Defense, Bello Mohammed Matawale, announced the directive today, expressing gratitude to the president for his prompt response. The minister confirmed that military personnel have already started receiving payments a lot for the salaries being owed. But we would have to go on a very short break, and when we return, we would get right into the discussion for today. We urge you to stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It is still Political Voice right here on Voice of the People television. Tensions are rising in Kano as police have barred Emir Mohammed Sanusi II from attending a royal ceremony in Bichi local government area where a staff of office was to be presented to the new district head. Security forces, including armored personnel carriers, have blocked access to the emir's palace and have restricted movement. The emir was ready to leave for the event when he was instructed to remain indoors. Efforts by Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf to intervene were thwarted as his representatives were denied entry to the palace. The ceremony's venue was also condoned off, leaving attendees stranded. The Kano State Police declined to comment on the situation, which sparked speculation about the possible political motivations behind these actions. Official statements from the state government or the Emirate Council have not been released as at filing this report. Well, like I said earlier, joining us in the studio to make sense of these stories in the studio with me right now is Barrister Darlington Agumo, Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst, and of course a barrister by law. And joining us virtually is Mr. Isiaka Gbadamosi, a public affairs analyst and of course SDG advocate. And of course from our Orca studio, Ndubisi Gabriel Okmaleze is also joining us. Gentlemen, a very, very good evening to you again.
Good evening, David. How are you?
Fine, very well. Thank you, Barrister. All right, I'm going to start with you, Barrister, before I go to our virtual guest. First off, again, this Emirates tussle, like it's popularly said, is at the front burner. What would you make of this action by members of the security forces not allowing the emir to leave the palace today?
When you say security forces, they are not acting on their own. Somebody deployed them there, and that person is the federal government of Nigeria.
How do you mean, Barrister?
They cannot be there on their own. They must be deployed by somebody, and that person now, as I talk to you, is the federal government. It couldn't have been state government or any individual. So the federal government is aware, and the federal government is causing the problem in Kano Emirate Council, because by law, the federal government have no business in that place. It is not within their jurisdiction.
Okay.
So the federal government is the one creating the problem in that Emirate Council.
Now, Barrister, when you say the federal government is the one creating this trouble, first off, I'd like to find out, what do you think would be the major reason why the federal government is practically having a hand in this level of tussle of the Kano Emirates?
2027.
How do you mean, Barrister?
Politics. You know, Kano has always give APC large number of votes since 2015. Buhari got 1.9 million votes in Kano that gave him victory over Jonathan.
Okay.
So since that time, they have always been having their way in Kano. It was under Ganduje that the table turned, and NNPP took over.
Right.
And they are not happy. They want to put their own man there who will now help them during the next election. It's as simple as that. Sanusi is a man of his own. I don't think anybody can control him.
Okay.
That's the issue here. So the Bayero is a man that is very, very disposed to APC and their shenanigans. That's why they are supporting him. That is why a Rubado will leave his office and commandeer the security personnel to lead him back to the palace.
Yes.
When the state government have asked him
Today, but his intervention were thwarted, of course, because his representatives were denied entry into the palace. How would you describe this? Because this is the governor, the number one man of that same state, being denied access into a palace that is in the same state where he governs as the chief security officer.
Now, will you agree with me that the federal government is behind what is going on now? Is that not a clear-cut evidence? And under our laws, the federal government have nothing to do with chieftaincy matters.
I was going to ask you that, Barrister.
It doesn't. They don't have any. In fact, they don't have any power to impose or dispose anybody.
The State Legislative Council in Kano State did preside over this particular situation, and we got a judgment. But it's looking more like some persons elsewhere is trying to do some things that are very irregular. What's the implication of all of this to the Emirates in Kano?
The federal government is always stoking fire. You know, whenever they cause problem, they will look for P2B or article to blame. I'm telling you, by the time this thing in Kano snowball into a serious security issue, this APC will start looking for somebody to blame. Now that they are creating this problem, they will not see or listen to some of us. They won't even begin to calculate the implication. Because I know the people of that area. They don't hear come back. They only
Mr. Gbadamosi, can you hear me now?
Yes, please. I can hear you loud and clear.
Amazing. Welcome to the conversation. You've been listening to us all the while. And interestingly, this Emirate tussle seemed to not fizzle away anytime soon. The situation in Kano today was, of course, you've heard me read it out, where the emir was restricted from going to a function. And interestingly as well, the governor of the state, I'm talking about Abba Yusuf, trying to also intervene, was denied entry into the palace. What do you make of this from your perspective?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me say good evening once again to our listeners and Barrister Darlington in the studio. As it is right now, the Kano State's emirship tussle is coming to a head for me. I do not see a situation where the federal government would sit down and allow a situation whereby you have anarchy within the space. Now, you see, the genesis of this problem in itself is political. You have two gladiators in the state. I'm talking of Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso and Abdullah Ganduje, Dr. Abdullah Ganduje, National Chairman of APC.
Yeah.
These are the people that are really behind the scene that are stoking this fire. And you see, unfortunately also, the traditional institutions in the country, or let me say every part of this country, has allowed itself to be manipulated by the politicians. They've allowed the politicians to come into their midst and use them as pawn in their chess game, unfortunately. And that is why we are seeing what is happening today. From what I could deduce from what is happening in Kano State, if you remember, the emir installed his son as the I think the waziri of one of the emirates, and he's supposed to go today to officially hand over that space to him. Right. And this space, this is what is in contention in the court. Emir.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay, I think we're still having a bit of network issues. I'm going to come to you, Ndubisi, our correspondent from Oka. I don't know if you can establish communication with us right now. A very good evening to you. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're still having issues with the network. We hope it's going to be resolved in a matter of time. Barrister, I'm going to come to you. Mr. Bedamosi was saying there that our traditional institutions have allowed themselves to be infiltrated by politicians. Do you agree to this assertion? And if you agree, what can be the solution? Because this is becoming unbecoming as the days go by.
It's not even our traditional institutions, our courts, the judiciary, all the institutions of state has been bastardized by the politicians and mainly the executive. They want to have a hood on everybody and everything so that they can control them. But that is not what democracy is all about. That is why these things are spelled out. You know your boundary. This particular issue now is within the boundary of the state government. After all, this same Sanusi was deposed.
Yes.
And he walked away. He walked away without any qualms. A government now came and said, look, this man was unjustly deposed. Let's put him back to his position. The man who was there, Bayero, has already left office. He quietly left without any problem. All of a sudden, the National Security Advisor led the policemen and led the man back to the palace that he should go and sit down there. What does that tell you? Provocation, arrogance, impunity. The man was deposed, and he accepted his fate. So why are you now crying more than the bereaved?
Well, some quarters have said that the man felt aggrieved about the way he was deposed. And of course, the NSA allegedly now decided to reimpose him on the people. What's the implication of this? Because you were saying it before now.
Whether he was properly deposed or not, it does not warrant the involvement of the federal government or the officials of the federal government. It does not. Let him sort it out with the state government in court or wherever. It doesn't warrant the federal government giving order, mobilizing police and all that. It doesn't.
All right. I understand that we're trying to still establish communication with our virtual guest, but let's find out. NDBC, can you hear us? Our correspondent from Oka, I don't know if you can hear me now. It's I don't know, but maybe, hopefully, we're still struggling to get this connection right. And of course, it's interesting to note that this conversation, yes, but we would need his audio to really be audible for our listening and our viewing audience. But Mr. Bedamosi, are you still with us? All right, Mr. Bedamosi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, amazing. We lost your line of thought at that time because of the network issue. You were going to land on your thoughts about the fact that our traditional institutions have been infiltrated by political elites. What was your landing thoughts? Let's have you more.
Yes, what I was saying earlier was that the political landscape, that the traditional landscape has been infiltrated by the political elite, and they are the ones talking the fire behind it. And for me, I think litigations that concerns, and we've seen it severally, litigations that concern traditional institutions go right all the way to the Supreme Court. And the government would not sit by and watch a situation whereby you have a contention here, and then some are for and the other are against, and before you know it, the state would degenerate into anarchy. So I think it's not anything out of place to insist on having a situation, like I was saying, I suspect that what is happening today is the fact that the state operatives are preventing the Emir Sanusi Lamido from embarking on what he's doing right now, because maybe they feel that this case is still in court, and until such a pronouncement is made for the court, it will not be appropriate for him to go ahead with this. Because if you remember, this the emirate that were created, we are about 5, and these emirates had people who were installed in all of these places as emir under the rulership of Aminu Ado Bayero. So for me, it's a dicey thing. You cannot allow a state of anarchy within the system. You must allow the due process of the law to follow to be followed through, so as to be sure that nobody is changed. Just like Aminu Ado Bayero has the right to be heard in the court, the emir Sanusi Lamido too has the right to be installed as the emir, but it must follow due process and the process of the law.
All right. Well, I'm still going to come back to you, but let me try and see if our correspondent from Oka is very much audibly okay now for us to have him. Mr. Lubisi, I don't know if you can hear us now. Once again, I bid you welcome to the show this evening.
Yeah, thank you. I can hear you, Lada.
All right. Amazing. Amazing. So let's have your view on this particular story that we're presently extracting. What do you make of these kind of tussle that is not going off anytime soon in the Kano Emirate?
Yes, my view is not quite from what they've been talking about. I see a lot of politicking around our traditional institutions, and these things don't quite go well with the leadership of the community. You know, like Barrister Darlington rightly pointed out, Kano
Unfortunately, I'm struggling to really hear what you're saying, Mr. Ndubisi, and I hope our technicians and, of course, our people over there in Oka can really get it right with your audio. Really, I want to hear your position. But, Mr. Badamosi, I'm going to come back to you on this, and I don't know if you're still with us. Interestingly, security personnel were found at the Emir's palace with armored personnel carriers. That's the APC. Now, you and I know what an APC truly defines in a situation that some persons will be saying, is there any security issue to have warranted this level of armored cars and carriers to have been placed in such a place? What's your take on all of this? Now, this is coming at a time where the defense headquarters is saying that the Lakarawa group are the ones responsible for the bombing in Zamfara state. We still have a lot of insecurity issues in some other states. Why push an armored personnel carrier to a palace where nothing, relatively nothing, is happening there? What's your take on this, Mr. Badamosi?
Okay, you see, there is something about Kano State. I think Barrister Darlington mentioned it in the way it is mentioned in local palace. There are people that only hear go, they don't hear come. Okay. So you see, the thing is this: you must make provision for a place like Kano. It's a very volatile place, and you must also look at the fact that in the last election you had a split you have a massive vote coming to the APC, and also the PDP, the LNPP had quite a lot of votes too. So there are a lot of followers and support on both sides, and you don't want that to snowball into a crisis. Okay. So you must take maximum precaution to be able to make sure that you have enough deterrence to forestall any kind of breakdown of law and order. And I think ordinarily, maybe if ordinarily the area was to attention was called to this, that you cannot proceed with this, there might not be need for all this display of force, and then the security forces. It could have just maybe be a discussion and a directive that, look, this has to be kept on hold. But you know, Kano State being an NNPP state, and the APC government, they might not be seeing eye to.
For some reasons, I don't know, the network has been really
All of this might be reasons why the security forces are coming out strong to make sure that they have no deterrence.
All right. Now, Barrister did made a statement a couple of minutes ago. He said all of this is snowballing to 2027 election. Just a couple of hours ago, the APC chairman, the person of Ganduje, who was the former governor of Kano State, did mention that Adamawa State would be taken over by the APC come 2027. Interestingly, it's looking more like his target is the northern states that did not deliver to the APC during the general elections. Do you also share this sentiment? With the Kano Emirate has every finger touched to the 2027 election that, of course, Barrister alluded to a couple of minutes ago. Oh dear, I think Mr. Gbadamosi's we're struggling to really get him there. All right, Barrister, I'm still going to come back to you, and I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Mr. Gbadamosi a couple of minutes ago. Armored carrier vehicles in a place where there was relatively no war, compared to a place where there is insurgents, and I'm talking about Zamfara State, where we've had multiple bombings in just hours from this time. What do you make of this? I mean, such action.
You see, the federal government of Nigeria, they don't know how to manage crisis.
You think that's the situation here?
Yes, they don't know how to even maintain a security situation. Rather, they are very good in escalating it. Go and check. Go and check from the beginning, from Buhari to this present one. They have always escalated the security situation in Nigeria out of selfish interest. Instead of treating it as a national issue, they'll be looking at it where it will favor them. In the process, the thing will escalate and become a big problem. And by then, they will start looking for somebody to blame. It has been their way of doing things, which is very bad.
Well,
I told you here the genesis of this matter. Somebody was deposed. He left quietly. He left quietly. Everybody saw it. Why must it be you that will now lead him back to the palace? Is it not the responsibility of the state government to depose any emir or any traditional ruler under their domain?
Yes.
So what is your own there?
Barrister, what do you think, from your personal opinion, might be the reason why, allegedly, like we know, the NSA trying to impose back into the seat Bayero?
It may be this uncle-nephew relationship, or the man wants to prove to his father that his son has power and can put him in office.
Well,
is that not selfish? for a matter that you don't even have a authority over.
All right.
The federal government is the one stoking the fire in Kano. Simple and short. If they have allowed this man to go when he was deposed, there won't be a problem. After all, Sanusi was deposed now.
Yes.
So many other emirs have been deposed in the north.
Barrister, in one sentence.
So why is this one different?
What is the implication of these actions that did happen today?
I said there may be problem. Oh. Mark my word, there may be problem. I've told you, the people of Kano, the way they behave,
Oh, well.
God forbid that this thing get out of hand. That APC they put there,
Yes.
it may not even do anything. In fact, the APC will be on the run. If those people start and do their thing the way they do it, that APC will be moved out of that place in a jiffy.
Oh, well, we're hoping that it doesn't escalate to that level. Before we get to the next conversation, I'd like to also take maybe the opinion of Mr. Ndubisi, our correspondent from Oka. I don't know if his audio is better now. So I lost you I beg your pardon. I lost your train of thought a couple of minutes ago. I don't know if you would have to land on those thoughts before we get to our next conversation, quickly because of our time.
Yeah, what I was saying before is that I was trying to toe the line of Baramosi and Barrister Darlington with regards to political interference in the affairs of a communal living, traditional stew. I don't see why, this governor will come in and prefer a particular traditional ruler. Another one will come and depose the other one and bring in another. And then the federal authorities will come in, even when the traditional institution is government. You see something, for instance, that the state authorities were coming to intervene and the office of the governor was not even allowed. That will show you that it's power from above. Somebody from the top is trying to prove a point. But like others have said, there's this fear that in trying to prove this point, it might escalate. There's tension already. And remember that people are hungry. People are very hungry and they're looking for ways to vent their angers. Now you are trying to stoke it. When it goes out of hand, only God knows where it will stop. That is the infant, because as I look at it, once they start, it will not stop. So the best thing is for each tier of government to work within their limits. And even the state government that handles the traditional authority, they should also allow the people to have a say in their traditional institution, so that there will be no decision for offices and authorities. The office of emir is not something that could be toyed about to the other. Because as I know, Emir Sanusi
will have to jump to the next conversation almost immediately. Interestingly, the indigenous people of Biafra, Ipob, and the Niger Delta Forum, Pandef, are in conflict over the Niger Delta's association with the Biafra movement. Pandef's national youth leader, Domben Donyega, rejected the claim that the region is part of Ipob's agenda, stating that the Niger Delta does not support Ipob's secessionist goals and emphasized the need for unity in Nigeria. He warned that any further claims regarding the inclusion of Niger Delta communities in Biafra would encounter strong opposition. In response, Ipob spokesperson Ima Powerful asserted that Ipob does not pressure anyone to join their cause, and their decisions about joining Biafra will be made during a future referendum, allowing individuals to determine their own future. What an interesting back and forth. Barrister, I'm going to start with you. The statement, of course, it's been trending all day, and a lot of persons have been wondering, why is this inclusion and why is Pandef disassociating themselves? What do you make of all of this, basically? Let's start from there.
Originally, Rivers State was part of the East Central States before the Civil War.
Right.
They were all part of Biafra, so to say, until Gowon, in order to whittle down the powers of Ojukwu, now balkanize the entire area and even push some of our people into other states. That is why you will always have a large number of Igbos,
Okay.
large number of Igbos in Delta states, you know, and within that Niger Delta environment.
Yes.
The Igbos are in large number. It was deliberately done just to whittle down the powers of Ojukwu. So when Samuel Negba was doing his thing and included their names as part of Biafra, one can say, well, historically, he may be right.
Okay.
But is that the agenda of Ipob? The answer is no. We already have 5 states. If the 5 states can get what they want, we are good to go. We are over 30 million in population. Israel, that is giving the entire Middle East a problem, they are just less than 10 million. Okay. Most of the countries in Europe, their population is not up to, you see some that are 5 million, some 10 million in population. I mean a country.
Yes.
So it's not about population. We don't even need the large number that Samuel Negba is proposing, though we are not in support of what he's saying. It doesn't require any rebuttal or any denial or any, because the mainstream Ipob is not the one behind this. Because I've been asking myself, where did the Samuel Negba get 40 states that make up Biafra? Nigeria has 36 states. This particular young man, he is overambitious. Did he include the Cameroon and the Chad and which other state made it up to 40?
I honestly was going to ask you that question.
So we don't know. That's why we are surprised. We don't know. So the man, I don't know what has gotten into him. How did he draw the map? We have 36 states. And you are now claiming that a particular region is now 40 states. I don't get it. That means Nigeria plus other African states. That's the meaning. Nigeria plus other African states. I was wondering whether he will name them and show all their capital and all that, and then the boundary. So Pandef don't even need to panic. We don't need anybody to join Biafra. It is whether you like. After all, the original state that started America, we are 13 in number. Others joined willingly on their own. Nobody forced anybody.
All right. Well, interesting.
So it's the same thing. What we are saying here is that map or that name or that list by Ipob, Samuel Negba, is a non-issue. Because we don't know where the 40 states are coming from. We don't even want saboteurs in our midst.
Well, Barrister, some quarters would say, is there the possibility that he would have, in his own way, maybe shared some of the states into different mini-states?
And what does that mean? Who is it to do that?
Okay.
Who is it to do that? That is why some of us will keep laughing at what this young man is doing. It's not serious. Seriously, it's not serious. What he has done now, he has created more problem for even the Biafra agenda. He has created more problem for what Ipob is all about.
All right, Barrister. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Badamosi. Again, the Niger Delta Forum, Pandef, are making a clear statement. We are not part of Ipob. Ipob stays on their own. We are not associated to them. Now, just like you heard the barrister a couple of minutes ago, originally, historically rather, the southeastern states are inclusive of rivers and the likes, even though there's still some level of agitations from Pandef asking for a more inclusive Nigeria in terms of restructuring. What do you make of all of these stories? And of course, basically their statement saying we're disassociating ourselves from Ipob, which of course they said is a secessionist goal that they are targeting. What do you make of this?
Yes, I think first and foremost, I want to react to the issue of Samuel Ekpa.
Yes.
Samuel Ekpa, I think he has told us that he's a skit maker. And most of what he's doing is not anything serious. So I don't think anybody should take him seriously. That is on the one side. On the second side, I would want to look at, if you look at the history of Nigeria in itself, you will see that we have had an history of balkanization of our various states and regions over time in order to whittle down the power of some sections here and there. I'll cite you an example of the Western region. The Western region before now used to be comprised of what you call today Delta and Edo and Delta state. It used to be comprised of those two states until when Bender state was carved out, and then later on we had Delta out of Bender state, and then we now had Edo state and Bender state. So that is not a thing that is really new to us in terms of politics. If you go up also to this, you look at it like Kwara State, which is predominantly Yoruba people. And at the end of the day, it is being said to be a part of the northern region of the country. So it's all part of this balkanization. It is a divide and rule thing. And as a result of that, I think over time, people tend to start choosing where they want to belong and where they feel their interest is better served. You see,
if you can hear me well, I think the issue is actually because Ipob has replied so wisely and should have put that matter to rest by telling them, relax, nobody is trying to encroach on your territory. Maybe what led to that was the purported declaration of 40 United States of Biafra in Finland by people loyal to Simon Ekpa. Because if you listen to the names of some of the states, people that are original members and founders of Ipob will be wondering, Igogo Miado, or so many names that you don't know where they are coming from. So that issue shouldn't be an issue, just like Emma has replied. But then, the way Ipob, the way Pandef came out to talk about, to say that they can come up with resistance, it appears that they have been, bringing up a kind of militancy to it all. But issue of where one belongs, the way Ipob is doing it, following it the way it should happen, they're thinking about referendum, which everyone will be free to say, this is to belong. Telling me that they are speaking for all areas of Niger Delta. Are they so sure they are speaking for them? It's only when it comes to the referendum that we'll be sure where one wants to belong. And these are things that will happen that there will be no bloodletting. So for me, there's no, this is much ado about no. It's not that we should begin to leave the substance and begin to chase shadows about the issue of Biafra and Ipob and Pandef. There shouldn't be any love lost, so to say.
With us, the issue of marginalization of some persons and some groups, do you think the federal government of Nigeria, the present administration, and even the past administration have truly addressed these issues, which of course is the reason why the agitation seems to be persistent at all times. Now, I said, do you think that this present administration and maybe the past administration or even the previous ones have in any space addressed it in any way? When it comes to appointments and, of course, using the federal character appointees and all of that, in your opinion, do you think these issues have been addressed in any way?
Yes, talking about the immediate past administration of President Muhammad Buhari, he couldn't have addressed anything when he was talking about, a dot, a tiny dot, referring to profiling. And in appointments, when people are agitating for something, to ameliorate the situation, if you are using carrot and stick, you get resolved. The appointments are not the are not well distributed.
We're struggling so badly to get your audio with us and clearly. And I'm hoping that our technicians, of course, in Oka, the Oka studio would get it right, because really we're struggling to hear what you're saying. And I would have to come back to you on that as we continue with this conversation. Now, Mr. Gbadamosi, I'm going to ask you the same question. I don't know if you're there. Mr. Gbadamosi, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
All right. Now, let me have your position on these agitations. Do you think that the reasons for this agitations, which of course quite a number of these groups have said they've been marginalized to the barest minimum, do you think these have been resolved? And of course, looking at federal character and appointment of this administration, of course, the past administration, let's even say, stream it down to the APC government, do you think these marginalizations have been addressed in any way?
Okay, I think if we're looking at what are the issues that are responsible for the problem on ground, the issue of marginalization and maybe some of the disparity in terms of appointment and all of that.
Yes.
I don't think it's a thing that came as a result of the APC government of today, or even maybe the PDP government of when they were in power. I think it's more of a thing of what has happened in our history. You see, we need to correct the history. We need to correct the history of the Civil War, what happened during the Civil War. Those that are aggrieved as a result of the Civil War incidents, what are the things that needs to be done to appease those that still feels aggrieved? I know that the Igbo-speaking part of this country still feel very passionately about Biafra. Of course they do, but they need to have a justification to want to belong to Nigeria. And a justification would mean that are there the incentives? Are they being given enough incentives to want to be part of this country as Nigeria? Then there's also the part of what are they also bringing to the table? In politics, you do horse trading. In politics, you negotiate. You do a lot of give and take. I will cite you an example of the Southwest. At the early time when this democracy came in place, we had a Southwest that was more or less isolated, lost all its states except for Lagos State. But over time, they won back the state and recreate another party and form an alliance across the Niger. I think there must be such pragmatic move. And that we have seen that before happen. It has happened during the Shagari regime. When there was that alliance, there was that working together. When we had the late vice president, I've forgotten the name, Dr. I will remember his name, the former vice president to Shagari, and there was that alliance and it worked. So there must be this synergy building. We cannot work in isolation and expect that things will start falling and things will start happening. It doesn't work like that. Politics is a game of horse trading and numbers, and your interest is served with who you are dealing with.
All right. Well, I'm going to come to this here. Thank you, sir. Now, Barrister Darlington, as it stands, the agitation would not stop. Pandef is agitating. Of course, they have said they've been marginalized far too long, and restructuring is key to them. Now, of course, the East Nigeria, which of course we're talking about Ipob, also have felt this marginalization. Do you think, in your words, and of course, as you wrap this conversation up, do you think that the agitations would in any way be addressed anytime soon, whether by this administration or some other administration?
It is in the interest of anybody at the helm of affairs to address it. Because you cannot beat a child and ask that child not to cry. Whether they do it now or they do it later, it will eventually happen. Because it has been the bane of Nigerian political development. If you check, in 1963, when the Middle Belt, that is the Edo, this Delta, it was Benin then.
Yes.
When they felt aggrieved, Awolowo had to ask them to do a sort of referendum or place besides to know whether they want to belong to Southwest or Midwest. They opted to remain in as the Midwest. And Midwest, how many? Just Benin. And Delta that was later carved out of Benin. They are just there was nothing like Niger Delta then. It was from these two states that subsequently other military head of state started carving out Cross River, Bayelsa and all that. So it originally started from Benin. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes.
And the leader then, Awolowo, saw the need to avoid the rancor, because if those people had been among the Southwesterners, there would have been bad blood. Because by culture, by language, by everything, Benin people are not Yoruba people.
Okay.
It wouldn't have been peaceful with them. So the man who saw the need, and that was why he gave them that option, and they accepted it. So if you go to even the Cameroon here, we made a mistake because those people wanted to be part of us. But Azikiwe said no, there should be a place visit or a referendum where the southern Cameroon decided to go back to the main Cameroon. But today, they have come back to their home. They are now trying to become their own independent state called Abazonia.
All right.
So over the years, this thing has been happening. Don't like to be there, it's not working. Go and check. The UK left Europe yesterday just because of this thing. They believe that they can work together and move faster if they have people with cultural affinity.
Okay.
Traditional and cultural, yes, the traditional affinity, language affinity, everything. If you go and check, people work, they move faster and they move better and they develop faster when they are united. But when you have a conglomerate of strange bedfellows, you put them together, my dear, if you move forward, the other person will draw you back. Say, where are you going to?
Oh, well.
And we have seen it here. Remember when Lagos was about to have this metro line? When Buhari came into office in 1998, he cancelled the contract, even when it has been paid. They now ask him, Buhari, why? He said, so you want Lagos to develop more than Kano? You can imagine that kind of mentality.
All right.
Everything you want to do here, they say, no, except it's happening in the north, you cannot do it.
Unfortunately, this is where we
have been moving backwards.
We have to draw the curtain, and time they say fly when we're having so much fun. I mean, I'm trying to not leave here, but because of our time, we have to go. Thank you so much, Barrister Darlington, for being here.
Thank you, David.
All right. In one sentence, Mr. Isiaka Gbadas Mosi, can I have your concluding thoughts on this particular topic? One sentence, please.
My concluding thought is very simple. One, what we have in the Southeast is a problem that we need to solve. And I think there are other problems too all over the countries that needs to be solved. Just like Barrister Darlington said, homogeneity is very important in the development of a nation. Yeah. And I must add to the fact that Edo and Benin have a lot in common with the Yorubas in terms of their language, in terms of their religion, in terms of their culture, their food, a lot of things. So there is that homogeneity, but you see, what the kind of politics we play in this part of the world is that balkanize us and we divide ourselves until we start looking at uniting ourselves much more so that we can work together. We might still be having this problem. I hope and pray that the Ipob and the Igbo-speaking part of Nigeria would also plug into Nigeria and see how they work and play the politics the way it should be played.
All right.
In addition to that, we are
Thank
giving
you so
enough.
very much.
We are the only ethnic group that have transversed the entire length and breadth of Nigeria.
Anyways, Barrister.
Nobody, no other ethnic group have traveled more than us.
We really have to go. Mr. Ndubisi Gabriel Okpalaeze, in one sentence, what's your final thoughts on this conversation?
Yeah, my final word is that we should let peace reign by allowing democratic tenets to take place. If, democracy is all about people, following things step by step, the procedure. If a people say they want to be on their own, the only way to know whether what they are saying is, are supported by the majority is by conducting a kind of plebiscite or referendum. When that kind of thing happens, a seamless pattern of ways may follow because we've lost.
We really, really are pressed for time, and I really have to apologize to all three gentlemen because we have to go. And we've been having this conversation.
David, finally,
yes,
whether they agree or not, they should stop postponing the evil day.
Oh, well.
Because we have seen it in other clans. Why did the Yugoslavia happen?
Barrister,
Kosovo, do you know why it happened? Is this type of thing?
definitely. And like I said, we will be having this conversation in the nearer days. We've been talking with Barrister Darlington Agumore, Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst, and of course, a social and political critic. I like to call him barrister by law. And we've also been talking with Mr. Isiaka Gbadamosi virtually. We've been talking with him. He is a public affairs analyst and, of course, SDG advocate. And, yes, joining us from our Orca studios is Mr. Ndubisi Gabriel Okpalaeze. I want to say thank you so very much, gentlemen, for being here. And to you out there that have taken your time to view us this beautiful evening, I want to say thank you. Without you, we cannot be here. To all of the guys at the back, thank you so very much for making this production very, very worthwhile. As we go, we always say, don't forget to always pray for Nigeria. There is no great nation like ours. Until we catch you same time next week, have an amazing weekend ahead. God bless Nigeria.